When I think about farming, I think about food. And when I think about food, I get happy. Today, today on the show, I have the incredible Bevon Charles, who is the CEO and founder of Akata Farms. Bevon, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Abigail, and thank you for having me.
Now, I'm always intrigued by the idea of farming and women who choose to take up a role of farmers and develop that industry. But before we get into the farming aspect of your life, I want to know who Bevon Charles really is.
Well, to be honest, you are not the only person that wants to know the same thing. I'm a complex woman, but in essence, I come from very humble beginnings. Both of my parents are entrepreneurs. My father is a farmer, and my mother has always been a woman who refuses to be beaten in life. So I grew up seeing that firsthand. And I think that is what made me who I am today. Strong, resilient, happy. I'm always happy, I'm always laughing. I'm the type of person that people will click to because I treat everyone the same. Yeah, in essence, I am Bevon, really. An easygoing person, hard worker, driven, ambitious, and yeah.
You spoke about being driven. What is behind the essence of you being driven?
Fear of failure, really. I think in life sometimes we set expectations really high, and sometimes we plan things and it doesn't go the way that we want it because we're not really in control of our lives. We have a divine being. So fear for failure has been my biggest motivator, never wanting to feel vulnerable or dependent on anything or anyone. So always being driven to get, to do, to have, always been a motivator in my life. I have a young daughter. I had a daughter when I was young. And because of having her at that time in my life, it changed a lot of my perspective of what I wanted. Because at the time before I had her, I was looking towards a career in law. And when I had her, I realized, well, things had to change because I now have somebody who's dependent on me. And I want to take control of that. I don't want outside influences to hamper that, that need to give her everything. So that's why I actually chose to go down the road of entrepreneurship. And yeah, it's a challenge, but it's something at the end of the day that keeps me going because at the end of the day, it's that core of having to do things for her and for our community, for development of women on a whole, keeps me going.
Okay. I can definitely relate to you when it comes to wanting to provide and wanting to be that person that can provide for your household. So I definitely can relate to you on that level. I also heard you talk about your father and him being into farming. How was that for you growing up?
Hard, because farming in Grenada is not easy. I think there is a stain to it. General perception is that it's all mud, dirt, and cutlass, really. And I think the older generation sees it as that. It's very hard because it ties in with the history of agriculture and slavery in the Caribbean. And we have an older generation that, worked the plantation, provided for the families, send the children off to schools and university, became doctors and lawyers. And they don't want their grandchildren to go into the same.
Go back there, yeah.
I think for my father, he didn't have the opportunities that I have now. So it was easy for him to go into in that industry. It was hard for him. And I think generally a lot of the older generation is saying that agriculture make me a pauper. I didn't get any success of agriculture, Same thing for my father as well. Today he loves it, but he hasn't seen the great rewards of agriculture. But growing up firsthand, seeing the struggle, but seeing the beauty of it. I remember one of my earliest childhood memories It was attending, we had a school field trips in them back in time. So we went to one of our plantations here. And I remember walking into the plantation, I think about between 7 and 8 years old. And there was this smell in the air of spice. And then I remember seeing this lady dressed up in folk costume, dancing in a bakun of cocoa. And I remember seeing that and said to myself, well, there's a beauty to this. Even though she maybe do it for her job, but I saw it and I thought to myself, I would have loved to go back in time, maybe 100 years, experience that firsthand. Maybe not as a slave, but maybe as a slave man. But I think I would have that compassion to see the beauty of what it is. And I carry that with me. Even though when I attended Anglican High School in St. George's, before I had to go to school in the mornings, and I was always earlier, 6 a.m., I normally had to call. I was like my father's sales manager then, even though I was young at the time. Had to call to the restaurants and the hotels and ask them if they want lettuce to buy, you want string beans to buy, you want bell peppers to buy. And we didn't have a transportation at the time, so we had to take public bus. And I had to carry that to the restaurants or the hotel before I go to school. And I did that for a lot of years. And I loved doing it because I saw my father working hard. He was trying to provide for his family. And at least I could do is contribute. Of course, the little stipend at the end of the month, added that bonus as well. But growing up firsthand, seeing it, and the struggle that he went through, and of the love for agriculture, and knowing what it could do for communities, for individuals, for the economy of Grenada on a whole, it's just something that naturally clinged to me that I had to do.
I love your passion that resonates through you speaking about agriculture and why you got into the business of agriculture. I wanted to go back to when it started. So you moved from law, thinking about getting into law. Your baby's here. How did you make that step from all of that into agriculture?
Well, as I said, it was always there. My father's a farmer. But I think it happened when I had my daughter. And I always, even so, it was always in the back of the mind that I wanted to own some piece of land somewhere and plant something. But those times it was just about maybe having an extra income coming in. But when I see the need for it in Grenada, and seeing especially the youth have no interest at all in it, it propelled me to get involved more and not thinking in terms of my own benefits, but community development and the country on a whole. So I asked my father, I said, will you be willing to do some poultry, birds? Because listen, he's hands-on knowledge. I do believe in sucking the older generation dry for the knowledge and experience to use it for your benefit. And I told him that. I said, will you be willing to do that? Because I didn't know nothing about poultry. And he said, sure. So at the time, funds was very limited. So we had to start from scratch. We started off with 50 birds at the time. And it was hard because we had to do everything by hand, feeding, but I watched, I observed. He did the operations and I phoned the markets and stuff like that. And within 6 months, I was able to purchase my first plucker and able to move from 50 to 150. And then he was no longer had to come in the morning. I was doing everything now. It was just me and him. But I was able to kill. I remember there were times my neighbors are standing. I was like, well, that can be Bevon Day. And I'm cutting the heads of a chicken and be like, this girl is crazy. And I'm moving, and I was able to do it as even better than him within that space of time. And then the business grew, and I failed. The first year I failed because I was still looking at it at what it could do for me and not necessarily why you're doing it. And I failed again, and I failed again. And it is good to sometimes in business to take a pause and reassess, to reaffirm why you want to do something. where you want to go with it. And the reason generally why you're doing it. And I had to do that, and I had to learn after those failures the reason why agriculture is so important to me. The economy of Grenada it's at the point where it is booming. Tourism has driven that need for people to come into our country and to taste pure Grenada and Spice Island of the world. Agriculture and tourism is hand in hand. However, the agricultural industry has a long way to go. The main reason is that lack of funding, lack of support. The youth are not involved. They, as I said, the stain, they don't want to get involved because they have not seen what they can do. They have not seen the success. And that's where it comes in terms of the knowledge gap. It's not being shared. And those who have succeeded are the older heads. And they are like, listen, I don't want to get involved in agriculture no more. I have made what I have made, and that's it. So they are, selling up the lands to do some real estate investment. And the young people who may, like myself, want to get involved, can't. There's this blockage. So there's a lot of challenge. Grenada have a high import bill. I mean, every Caribbean country has. But I do believe if you have to consider yourself sustainable, you need agriculture. You need to feed your people. We are what you eat. And if you're able to feed your people, then you could provide some sort of sustainable development. Agriculture, apart from that, has its challenges. We are faced with climate change. We are faced with trying to end world hunger. What can Grenada do to contribute to those things? And that is where the youth have to come in. And it's not just Akata Farms trying to provide and answer that import issue, but getting the youth involved and leading the charge by showing an example of how this industry can be a success. I mean, it's a business. And agriculture have not been treated as a business. We see it as, you have a plot of land, you clear it, you plant some beds, you sow the seeds, you leave it, and if it grows, it grows. That is not agriculture, and that is not sustainable agriculture. And then I think we have to stop, thinking of small and medium-sized farming. The world is an open market. I think policymakers have given us the opportunity to sell our products anywhere. If you're making cheese in Grenada, you should sell it in every country in the world. If you're making shoes, if you're making baskets, if you're making cocoa balls, that should be sold everywhere in the world. Because the market is there. It's just you, at the end of the day, have to want it and think that big picture. So there's a lot of work to be done. And Akata Farms is on the backbone of getting it. And as I said, there's a lot of work. We are not there yet. I'm not even close to where I wish to be. But I think is having that vision and that drive that to propel it further.
Like I said, I'm excited about what I'm excited already about what Akata Farm is going to do. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to return, and we're going to talk about the chickens that you've managed to take the necks off and all that you're doing on a day-to-day basis at the farm. So stay with us. We'll be right back.